Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And greetings to the panel of Project Sarjana Muda presentations. Technologist Hafizuddin bin Ihsan and then Professor Dr. Muhammad Amri bin Najis. I would like to thank both of these panels for the opportunities given for me to present the title of my project, which is Various Parameter of Mini-Scale Pyrolysis Burner for Production of Biochar and Wood Liquor, which is presented by Muhammad Azim Faris Bin Roslee and matrix number of CN200212. For this title, for this research, it can be separated into 5 main points, which being introductions, literature review, methodology, expected results, and conclusion. In this, each of this chapter, it also been divided into few subtopics. Which is the first one, the introduction. The first subtopic, which is research background. The process of pyrolysis started as a religious ceremony, which is done by the ancient and historical civilization. But as stated by Garcia Nunez, 2017, in the late of 18th century, the pyrolysis technologies has emerged from the just the traditional historical methods of older civilization. And then the pyrolysis process is actually a process of a high temperature that breaks down complex compound into simpler forms in the absence of oxygens, which is to say it can use as a process to produce charcoal or any biocomposite. And then biochar, it is a carbon-rich soil that supplement with a porous structure from a soil fertility and plant growth. Most of this application is being used in the agricultural purpose, but at the same time, the biochar also can be used as a fuel. And then the wood liquor, it is a solid residual co-products and ash. It is a non-condensable gases and condensable liquid known as pyrolysis oil or pyrolytic oil and wood liquor. It is mostly being used as well as a pesticides in the agriculture sectors. Next is the problem statement. As we know that biochar and wood liquor production is an innovative and sustainable solution to the environmental and agricultural challenge. The use of raw feedstock for production of biochar and wood liquor mostly being used using the composites of natural materials such as bark, dead tree, bamboo, and so on. However, there are several obstacles that constrain and that need to be addressed before widespread adoption and effective implementation of biochar production can occur, which is the first one, is that the temperature at which the pyrolysis process is particularly crucial in determining the output, quality, and characteristics of the biochar as stated by Zhang, 2015. And then number two, the qualities of biochar are mostly determined by the pyrolysis conditions and the use of the feedstock itself as stated by Dai, 2022. Next, the research objective. This research aims to study the effect of various parameters on mini-scale pyrolysis burner to the Buluh Betung, which is Dendrocalamus giganteus, biochar and wood liquor characteristics. The second one is to characterize the physical properties of the structure, moisture content, and the viscosity of the wood liquor, while the chemical composition on the percentage of carbon content, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and finally the pH value of the produce, both biochar and wood liquor. The scope of this research is mainly focusing on the specific parameters and the materials, ensuring a targeted and focused approach throughout the whole research, which is the first one. The selection of the feedstock in this research is specified on the Buluh Betung itself. And then the varied parameters on the pyrolysis condition is stated they only have two type of pyrolysis process, which is a slow and a fast pyrolysis process. The third one is the characterization of physical composition, which include the structure of the biochar, moisture content, and the viscosity of the wood liquor. And finally, the characterization of the chemical composition on the percentage of carbon content, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and the pH value of the both biochar and wood liquor. So the significance of this study is that this research is optimizing the factor in the pyrolysis process that leads to increase the biochar output and improve the yield, quality, and the properties of the biochar itself. The research contributes to the development of efficient and environmentally friendly feedstock conversion technologies and promoting a way more sustainable energy generation and resource recovery from organic waste products. Next is the literature review. Some of the past research on the pyrolysis process stated that uh, the involve of two processes, which is slow and fast pyrolysis. The first one, slow pyrolysis, can reach the temperature of 300 to 700 of the process. And then the heating rates of 0.1 to 1.0 degrees Celsius per minute. And then the aeration, which is mean that the process cannot involve any oxygen onto the process. Then the residence times can take to minutes to hours, which is mean residence times in the process of turning the feedstock or the biomass into the biochar. And then the targeted product, which is the yield of biochar itself. And then the reactors that can be used for this is the fixed bed pyrolysis reactor and auger pyrolysis reactor. Some of the advantage of this slow pyrolysis that can be applied is that it it produces the highest yield of biochar instead of production of wood liquor, and it also can accept a wide range of particle sizes of feedstock. But some of the disadvantage of this is that the further treatment of the gases is needed due to the high carbon dioxide concentration on the feedstock. Meanwhile, for fast pyrolysis, it can take the process involve from 600 to 1000 degrees Celsius with the heating rates of 10 to 10,000 degrees Celsius per minute. And it is also an oxygen deficient process of aeration. The residence time could take seconds onto hours or even weeks. And then the target product is mostly just wood liquor, and some of the example of the reactors, which is the bubbling fluidized bed, ablative reactor, and the rotary cone. And the advantage of it is mostly produce a higher yield of wood liquor, which is mean if the main product of the production for the process is wood liquor, then fast pyrolysis is the best option. Some of the disadvantages is that it have a lower biochar yield. The fine particle of feedstock needed between 1 to 2 millimeters is required, and the preferred feedstock must have a lower moisture content, which is less than 10%, as stated by Tan EL ATEL 2021, which is the comparison between slow and fast pyrolysis. The next part for literature review, which is explaining the things about the feedstock, as stated by Oyedun, etc. 2013, stated that bamboo's abundance and rapid replenishment have sparked global interest in bamboo as a fuel substitute, with charcoal and activated carbon production receiving a lot of attention, which just means that before this, bamboo is the main product for furniture, for the paper making, but at the same time, recent with the previous research that have been conducted that stated that bamboo is a suitable feedstock that can be used to produce biochar and wood liquor as well. And then Bordoloi and Borkotoki 2015 stated that the biochar production is a sustainable waste and disease management option, which is containing 50% of the original carbon, if not aiding in the carbon sequestration by locking the carbon in plant feedstock. It is also elemental composition and structural configuration are strongly correlated to each other. And then finally, the wood liquor, as stated by Hubbard 2020, the liquefaction is an analogous process to the natural occurring formation of crude oil, which is only takes just a few minutes instead of taking using the pyrolysis process instead of millions and thousands and millions of years of naturally produced. And then after it being subjected to high heat and pressure, the feedstock is converted into hydrocarbon oils and byproducts. A direct liquefaction, also known as the heat depolymerization, that has been demonstrated to be affected in the creation of liquid oils or wood liquor. Next, we enter the third chapter of this research, which is methodology, which is how the whole research is conducted. It can be categorized into four different subtopics, which is the first one is research flow chart, and then collecting and pre-processing of Buluh Betung feedstock, the use of mini-scale burner for pyrolysis process, and finally the characterization of biochar and wood liquor. The first one, which is the research flow chart, it can be separated into two phases, which is phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 1 involving all of the process that can be conducted in Project Sarjana Muda 1, which is obtaining the research objective, conducting literature review, studying all of the past research related to the project itself, and finally collecting Buluh Betung feedstock. And the phase 2 involving the process of pyrolysis process itself, that involve two type of pyrolysis process, which is the slow and fast pyrolysis. And then after that, does the biochar and wood liquor successfully produced? If no, and then the process of pyrolysis need to be redone, that involving both of it, slow and fast pyrolysis. If biochar and the wood liquor is successfully produced, then we can proceed onto the data collection of physical and chemical composition, and then conducting a data analysis of physical and chemical composition throughout the result and discussion, and finally the conclusion of this whole project research. And then the second subtopic, which is the collecting and pre-processing of Buluh Betung feedstock. The Buluh Betung can be obtained from the clump of population in bamboo plantation that is located in utilization Pagoh itself, near to the campus, and it is utilized for the process of pyrolysis. And collecting the feedstock, it is used for the fast and slow pyrolysis process. As the Buluh Betung sample collected, it can be divided into two batches for different pyrolysis process. But at the same time, the moisture content of the dry and raw feedstock is to be measured, and it can be categorized into mini-scale burner pyrolysis. As you can see in this table that is provided, that is the only feedstock involved in this research, which is dry feedstocks that can be obtained after a process of sun drying of the Buluh Betung itself. And then once the moisture is taken out, we can subject these two batches of feedstock into a slow and fast pyrolysis process, with both of them having 5 kilogram weight, the same weight. And then the next process, which is the use of mini-scale burner for pyrolysis process, as has been detailed and explained in the previous subtopic, which is research flowchart. This process involved in Project Sarjana Muda 2, which is phase 2, as the use of mini-scale pyrolysis burner. It is a small burner designed for small-scale processes. It is typically used in laboratories, research institutions, or small-scale applications. It is also enables a controlled and precise pyrolysis investigation and product manufacture without any oxygen. Now, some of the advantage is being it is designed to be user-friendly and simple to use. It is also useful for testing and assessing pyrolysis process, and it can be used to experiment with various feedstock compositions, pyrolysis settings, and product yields. But in this research, the feedstock composition is fixed, which is Buluh Betung only. The two types of pyrolysis process and product yields, which is being the bamboo and the wood liquor. Now, the use of mini-scale burner for pyrolysis process is as mentioned, will not be conducted in this research of Project Sarjana Muda 1. And then the next process, which is the subtopic, which is the characterization of biochar and wood liquor. which is the first one. It can be categorized into two parts, which is characterization of physical composition and characterization of chemical composition. Uh, the characterization of physical composition of biochar entails examining several aspects that explain its structure and physical behavior. Most of this property that we are trying to collect the data mostly being on the structure, moisture content, and the viscosity of the produced biochar and wood liquor. Meanwhile, for chemical composition, some of the data that are to be collected is biochar and wood liquor are the percentage of carbon content, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and the pH value of both of these byproducts. Okay, next is characterization of physical composition. The moisture content of biochar, it is impacts the physical qualities of the bulk density, porosity, and water holding capacity. It also can be obtained using the capacitance moisture meter. That it is to analyze electrical capacitance for on-the-spot measurements. Next is structural analysis for biochar. As we know, the biochar structure, it has porosity and cellulose or hemicellulose. It can be analyzed using the scanning electron microscopy, or known as SEM, for the image of high resolution surface analysis of various materials. And then finally, the viscosity of wood liquor can be analyzed using the vibrating viscometers to measure the viscosity of liquids like bamboo wood liquor. Next is the characterization of chemical composition, which can be divided into two main results that are desired, which is the percentage of carbon content, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. All of these elemental composition is a common that can be found in any biochar, especially bamboo biochar. It is the method to obtain it by using analytical techniques, using a elemental analyzers that can list out all of the chemical composition of which is the content of the elemental content in the products, which is biochar and wood liquor. At the same time, it can also produce a percentage of the weightage for carbon content, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. And then the pH value of biochar and wood liquor, it can be conducted and the result can be collected using a pH meter that can be used to determine the pH liquids that consists of a probe and a meter. It is mainly being used to assess the pH sample of biochar and wood liquors. Last but not least is the expected results of this research is that the Buluh Betung feedstock pyrolysis is expected to produce a biochar and wood liquor depending on the process that involved, which is fast and slow pyrolysis. With the bamboo being a high cellulose content, contributes significantly to the charcoal synthesis. The yield of biochar and wood liquor depending on the pyrolysis process as stated before. And finally, the properties and composition of the byproduct mostly will be affected by the parameters such as the condition of the bamboo and the condition of bamboo feedstock. The the parameters which being the two type of process, fast and slow pyrolysis. And then the research focus on two types of pyrolysis and analyze the physical composition of structure, moisture content, and viscosity, as well as the chemical composition of the biochar and wood liquor. In conclusion, the research on bamboo biochar and wood liquor has a potential in providing a valuable insight as the potential of producing a sustainable resources for various applications. And then some of the recommendation and improvement is needed to optimize the production of this process, and it can help hopefully enhance the properties and performance of bamboo biochar and wood liquor qualities. Some of these recommendations can be made and analyze data that will be included at the end of the research that will be continued in Project Sarjana Muda 2. These are some of the references that are being used for these slides and the Gantt chart of this project, starting from week 1 until week 15, which is the yellow remarking of the before the plan, and the green one being the actual planning of the actual schedule of the work itself. That's all from me. Thank you very much for your time.